Park,
I'll
with
get it.
Park
Yeah,
O&M
you can make me
committee
one
to
later.
order.
Probably.
Joint
I'll
O&M.
figure out one.
We have a motion to approve the minutes of the last meeting. Motion by Bill, second by Dennis, all in favor? I saw you nod there.
Yeah, he moved.
Yeah.
It's like an auction.
Yeah.
Be careful.
All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Okay, now, action agenda. Authorized payment to Village of Lake George for event expenses. Jeff?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. The first, pages 1 through 4 include, some invoices from the village for various events and, maintenance. And they're seeking reimbursement from the,
So the rates, the 1827 is for the, I guess, the mowing, and then the others is just, having people standing by for the events, 11? Is that what it
Yeah,
is? Yeah.
yes, there's mowing here,
Mhm.
Mostly.
Is that mowing you doing, or are we doing it?
We do it. Yeah, we do it. Yeah.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve those, payment of those bills, motion by Dennis, seconded by Bill. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, carried. Okay, page 5 is request for event deposit refund. Event scheduled for August 29th and 30th was canceled.
thanks, Mr. Chairman. This is an item that we discussed last month, and we were gonna verify that a deposit actually was paid. And, I was told by my staff that the event did in fact pay a deposit of $1,500. So it's back to committee consideration as to,
What was the reason for the cancellation?
Actually, it was the, All Events company from Albany, Diane Skyba, who organized the Hudson Valley Volunteer Firemen's Convention, sent us a deposit to do a craft show there at the end of August. And between the Hudson Valley Convention and the craft show, she experienced some financial difficulties and had to cancel the craft show. We didn't have any other opportunities to rent the space for that weekend.
Right. And we really have not adopted a policy on refunds, I guess, at this point. That's something I think we've got on the agenda for later, yeah. Okay, so, did we get a motion? No. Dennis, you're making a motion to release the deposit? Sorry, Mayor Blaze. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, carried. Okay, 7 is 2016 budget review.
on page 7 is a summary page. You'll see some of the, prior year, expenses and revenues. And then our, departmental request as it stands right now. And I have a couple of recommendations on some further changes as, some of our costs have developed. On page 8, those are revenue, parking fees essentially and event fees. Right now, we've got that projected at $50,000 for next year, and a lot of that can, is because the park is still in its infancy, and the rates have been somewhat in flux too, as we've tried to accommodate requests and keep the park busy and bringing new events in. But I thought 50,000 was a reasonable revenue projection.
What we talked about, I think at the last Park O&M, was the possibility of having revenue from the occupancy tax go into this and then not charge. Does this reflect that?
No.
Or that hasn't been approved yet?
That has not. I think that would require some further work by the OCTAX committee, and I think that's what came out of that. Wasn't that referred to OCTAX, or no?
Yeah, but then I think there was discussion about the village and the town.
Oh, that it was gonna be covered with village OCTAX, so that
Village
it wasn't
and town
further.
OCTAX.
So it wasn't further action by the county, right?
Is that right?
Yeah.
That was my understanding.
Yeah.
I think it was Dennis's too, yeah.
Correct. So,
Yeah,
this
so this
was
does
revenue.
not, this does not reflect, revenue, an OCTAX revenue on that page 8,
mhm.
under the revenue codes.
So where's that, where, the code is for parking fees, that's really, isn't that both event fees and parking fees?
Yes.
And so it's, so this 50,000 would be some combination of, parking fees, event fees, and or OCTAX, right?
Well, what, I think the OCTAX would be a separate revenue code, and I
Yeah.
don't, it's a different code
Okay.
number, but it would go on this page.
Yeah, but in any event, the critical thing here is the amount we're saying is 50,000. Right.
I think it's a good number
Yeah,
for what we're looking at needing and doing.
okay.
Yeah, we might need to establish even a separate code, for that OCTAX, but we can certainly reflect that. That's the,
Mhm.
Jeff, if you could just let me know any changes you're requesting, the budget officer will have to make those changes.
okay,
Right.
okay.
So really the only expense code is contractual.
The,
Because it's all with the,
yeah, if we go on to
with the village.
page 9, you know, originally when some of these codes were developed, it was anticipated that we would be able to run the code as a regular operations as any of my other budgets and be able to pay expenses as we go. A lot of what the expenses that we've done is bring those through committee for the village expenses, and then they have been being pulled out of the deferred revenue codes
mhm,
each time we came in with a new expense.
right.
And then the budget had been amended for it. I have a couple changes on this, as well, under the 400s, contractual 400s, on a separate piece of paper here, I have an updated, proposal from the village for conduct of, the routine maintenance and the park attendance. Routine maintenance of the park, the landscaping, piece of it, as well as the, daily restroom cleaning, of our restroom building, and then having a park attendant. And you can see under letter E, kind of the estimate, the rough estimate of hours and expenses, and
Oh, thank you.
sorry about that. Do you have anything to add, David or Mayor?
No, I think it's a good number to start with this year. We're gonna track it as we go and be able to come up with an actual number at the end of the year and, be able to adjust from there, but I think it's a good start.
We just think we need one attendant on site 7 days a week. It can do a lot of different things, obviously, trim, mow, take care of the restrooms, security, once the summer starts. And we're not sure we're gonna have to go till 10 o'clock at night, but.
Yeah, that's something we've gotta decide too, and probably over the winter we can decide what the hours should be. One of the things we talked about was during the week possibly having 2 people on there. They wouldn't necessarily work the same shift. One would be in early, one would stay later.
Mhm.
But, during the week, there may in fact be 2 people there because of the amount of mowing and different things you've got. And then the weekends, there'd definitely just be 1 person there.
There's a lot of, if you look at if you go up there and look at the hill
Oh, yeah.
from Route 9 where they placed all the boulders, and you look at the children's playground, the mowing and trimming is gonna be
Yeah.
enormous.
There's
I
like a
mean,
day
it
for each
isn't, there's no
area.
straight shots in the whole
Mhm.
place, but we think, you know, with one individual there all day can be doing a lot of that.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And that's what will work out for this.
Okay, yeah.
And then
Jeff?
as part of this, this would be the routine, maintenance and, cleaning, but then there would still be additional, work necessary for specific events. There might be certain events where it's additional staff, so I would anticipate there may still be some additional, back charges coming back through committee
Yeah.
or
Possi-
special stuff.
Yeah, possibly depending upon the nature of the event, the one person that's already there could do what our
Mhm.
attendant's doing now.
Right.
Yep.
But if it's a large event, for instance, like the Brew Fest was, he was kept pretty busy
Mhm.
during the whole time with refuse and garbage and picking up and all that. We'll just have to kind of play that by ear.
Mhm.
So is, the action for the committee would be to recommend to the budget officer that this additional $30,000, cost would be added into the contract code under 470. Right now, I've only got 10,000 in there, and that would be just any other routine, repairs, essentially repairs and maintenance of the property that we would contract out for. So that code, under 470 would go to 40,000 if the committee agrees to the village proposal.
Make that motion, Prem.
Okay, any second? Seconded by Bill. Discussion.
Did you say make it go to 40,000, Jeff?
Right, that code.
Code 470 on
You'd be
page,
adding
So
30,000.
you add 30 to the 10, that's so it's not 20 to
Right.
the 10, it's 30.
right.
Frank, you have something?
Gonna increase the revenue by, 30,000 also?
Right, and I think that would be the next step based on the conversation regarding the village octax. Right now, on the revenue pages, we have the revenue the park will actually generate, and then we can make up the difference with, you know, a revenue code of village octax.
30,000.
Right, but I have another item to talk about too, but, and then I think what would be prudent would be to get something back from the village, something formal saying, yes, the park is awarded X number of dollars of octax. I don't know what the process is for that, for the mayor, but.
Set it on the floor, I'll take care of it.
So if we can address this expense side, then we'll come back to the revenues. The other expense that I didn't include in here is the expense of building 2 ticket booths. And last committee, we talked about, doing a ticket booth on the main entrance by the Westbrook parking lot, and then also, maybe a smaller one because of the space constraints over on the Beach Road, entrance, that would be visible right by the steamboat, tickets, right at that other parking lot on Beach Road, and all of the pedestrian traffic, that intersection right there, or not an intersection, but that crosswalk area gets a lot of pedestrian traffic. Dave and I had talked about, those being constructed with municipal forces, and then charged against the project code, but we're anticipating a cost of about $6,000 to build 2 small ticket booths.
Mhm.
Beechwood does.
Together. They'd be essentially, shed size, but, you know, finished off on the inside just enough to make it comfortable for somebody. But then we would use some of the similar decor of the restroom building to try and finish the exterior, so that it kind of blends in.
And that's not eligible to be covered under any of the grants.
I don't think we had included those
Mhm.
in concept, if, I don't know of any grants that are open now that we could have.
Mhm.
It's tough to amend the grant scopes after the fact.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you've got, all the various agencies and
Mhm.
approvals. We probably wouldn't see the
Right.
ticket booth for 3 years.
Yeah, for the next century, yeah.
So we can do that under, we can either use that under a budgetary code, or do a separate resolution to simply pull that funds out of our deferred revenue as a block in order to construct those.
Mhm.
We can do that now, we can start construction before even the end of the year, start building them,
Mhm.
get materials
Or
and.
something like that. I think the only unknown we have there is if we're gonna put power and Wi-Fi in them,
Mhm.
that's something, I mean, this would be to build the sheds, and it shouldn't be a problem in our
Yeah.
labor, back charge labor, but, power and Wi-Fi, I guess that's the only thing we'd have to still discuss, what we do there.
Well, it makes sense to put power and Wi-Fi in them.
You got it, yeah,
Oh, yeah,
yeah.
Oh, I think that's the other thing I was thinking of after as well.
Yeah, one of the biggest problems we've had now, actually, I should have thought about it, but we could have used the visitor center as a ticket location.
Yeah.
The chamber was willing to do that, but we just didn't think about it. We're getting tons of calls from people, where do I go to buy tickets to see the show this weekend?
Right.
'Cause they don't get on the internet. I mean, you can
Uh-huh.
actually get them from brown tickets, brown paper bag. But, we'd have been busy at the visitor center this week with
Yeah.
ticket sales if we'd have set that up, but we didn't think about it.
Mhm.
Next year, if we have these 2 staff one, prior to events, I think it'll be very useful.
Yeah.
I guess, the way I would envision this is we could get initiated, we could start on the ticket booths, and then we could figure the Wi-Fi and power out, as we're heading into the spring to actually install these things. There's power in all of the lamp posts that we can draw off enough power, I'm sure, for those small ticket booths, just to have some lights and run a machine, a credit card machine or something else. The Wi-Fi, I guess, is another question I don't think we've talked about, and I don't recall it being brought up at the PMEC, but one thing to consider is whether you wanna have public Wi-Fi, broadcast as we have in a lot of municipal buildings. We have it in this building, and I'm sure the village probably has other, for public use. Whether there's an interest of the committee to establish that, and then, our other option would simply be to provide an internet service there into our main building, and then I'm sure we could do line of sight transfer out to the ticket booths and be able to even move the ticket booths around, but still capture that
Yeah.
Wi-Fi, back to the main building.
Yeah. Weren't some of in the south parcel, some of the interpretive facilities that were gonna have QR codes and possibly tours using Wi-Fi? Is that what?
I think that was gonna be rely on mobile service I don't think we talked
Okay.
about having internet service for people to jump on via Wi-Fi, like a public Wi-Fi service.
Right.
The QR codes, they would rely on their own, mobile data service to be able to access websites that would give that. And I think that's what has been talked about so far. I don't think we've talked about public Wi-Fi as yet, but if we're gonna install internet service at the facility, it could be a consideration. And, I think one of the things that is obvious to everybody, that there's more and more public Wi-Fi around when you wanna attract people. I mean, restaurants and businesses do it, certainly to attract customers. And I could envision, as the park is finished, not just the special events, but there's gonna be people picnicking and hanging out in the park, hopefully, families going there to picnic, and, they can bring their laptop and do some
Right.
work and
Work.
sit in the park and do some work if they have that, Wi-Fi service. I'm not sure exactly what the total cost would be to install a system like that, but I could work with our IT, with Mike Colvin, and kind of explore that.
Okay.
If we can
So-
get started on the actual booths, the
Yeah.
construction of the booths, I think that
So
would be.
you're saying leave it at 6,000 at this point?
Yeah, and I think, now that I'm thinking about it, maybe what we wanna do is recommend pulling it out of the deferred revenue now,
Okay.
and so that we can initiate purchase of the materials, and then have them on hand, so that as we transition out of our, fall maintenance into winter maintenance, we can get the stuff delivered, and then work on the construction little by little over the course of the winter.
Okay, well, maybe we should do that first then, just outside the budget, so have a resolution to approve using 6,000 of deferred revenue to build the ticket booths. Okay, anyone make that motion? Dennis and Bill? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, carried. Okay, so that leaves us
Nothing.
30,000 more on the expense side, so that would be a total budget of 73,000, is that what it is?
So, right, and then what we would do is go back to, as the budget officer mentioned, go back to, page 8, and recommend an increase to reflect the village tax of 30,000.
Yeah, I guess I'm still a little confused about that, because I was thinking some of the tax was gonna offset the event fees to part of the 50,000.
The,
50,000, so they're saying tax
oh, that's right,
in addition to.
right, because this, you're right,
Yeah,
because this 50,000 was based on keeping
the event,
fees
the
going.
event fees, right,
So,
You would have to put it in place of
right.
30, you'd still end up with 50, is what you're saying. So you just put 30 in as revenue coming in.
But if we're gonna, this number under the 2566 revenue code for parking fees does not reflect the action last month of forgiving the the direct fee cost. So I think what we need to do is reduce that, but then increase the village tax by the 30,000 plus a certain portion of this 50,000.
Mhm. And Dennis, didn't you say the town would also contribute some? Like tax?
Were you taking it out of the village or the joint?
It's our joint committee.
Joint.
It's our joint
Okay.
committee that we
Right.
use the money from.
Mhm.
I mean, we've been awarding the folks that are using the space octax, we
They
just
turn
pull it
around.
out of that,
Right.
so I
Right.
don't see it would be
Exactly.
anymore.
Short
It
circuit.
would be coming from our joint committee.
So do we have an estimate of how much money came out of that joint committee this year?
I think you said something like 48,000, didn't you?
Well,
Or something around 50.
our budget was 170,000. The
Right.
county gave us 100 and we both put in 35.
35, right.
But that was total.
Right.
If you wanted to, if we're gonna just be paying the $1,500 fees, per year, or per event, covering the ones that were here last year, the Leap of Faith people,
Mhm.
not the new events.
Mhm.
There was, 21 days, or 24 days, excuse me, so you're talking around $36,000.
So if we take that 50, we'll reduce that to 14,000? Reflect the fact that the 36,000 is not going to be, collected directly from the events. That revenue code would go to 14,000, and then we would need a revenue code for, 66,000.
We're still paying that occupancy tax into the park O&M fund, aren't we?
Right, and that would be, so I would take another code of 66,000, that would be the joint, town, village.
Octax.
So I'm taking the 36,000 in fees, plus the additional 30,000 we just added in for the O&M, the contract with the village,
All right.
so, right?
I thought you were doing bush math on me there for a minute.
Well, I mean, as long as the money ends up, I mean, I wanted to make sure that our O&M, our octax money is gonna end up in the park O&M account, to cover our stuff.
Well, I guess the other thing to sort out would be any excess. Right now, what happens with any, budget money that's not used, it just is held in that revenue account.
We have a balance there now.
But I think we would expend the 66,000 first, and then any of the 14,000 that doesn't get expended goes into that, park fund. As we know, this is a work in progress. I mean, the park isn't even complete yet, and we've already had a full season of events, and we're kind of still trying to project how it's gonna operate.
Mhm.
Next year will be really the first season we've had a reasonably complete park to even come up with and evaluate going into 2017.
Mhm. Mhm.
Jeff, on your budget, your revenues are gonna match your expenses, correct? When you get all done?
Yep.
That's the intent, yep.
Okay.
It would still just be the 30,000 that's coming from the joint, is what the total money is.
36.
You were gonna do 36, or were we gonna do 30? That's what.
The contract with the village is 30, and the additional octax, or the reduction in fee collection is 36,000.
Right, and this year,
So that's a total of
75
66,000 in octax revenue from the
From
town
the-
village joint.
It's $107,000.
I think that's more than we had talked about,
Yeah,
that's
it's,
all.
yeah, I
'Cause
got
we were
the
talking about
figure, it's
30,000,
16.
and that's gonna cover your O and M, so you were looking at 30,000 from the joint account to go there.
I'm not sure where it's gonna come from, but if we have 8 events, that were here last year, it would be 24,000. And then new events would be paying in as well, so your revenues are gonna be more than what our joint committee is gonna give you. The revenues are gonna exceed that because of new events, which are gonna be charged and still gonna go into the same.
Right.
Okay, does everybody understand what we're doing?
Is that something that
Clear as mud.
Yeah.
the town village joint OCTAX committee can get back to this one then before we adopt the budget to make sure we have a reasonable estimate of what would be available?
Well, Billy.
Right now, we're kind of saying the 66,000, but I think based on our numbers, really, we only need 59,000 is the numbers to make them two match, cause we have, right now, we've got our revenue projection had exceeded our expenses, and now we're just kind of moving the revenues between pots of money. Our total expenses have gone up to, 73,000.
Mhm.
So if we keep our revenue, our actual fee collection at 14,000, that only remains 59,000 in OCTAX needed to make the books balance. So that would be the number right now to make, as Joanne suggested, have the expenses meet the revenues would be 59,000 in joint OCTAX.
Right. Well, then, on the parking, are we really anticipating parking revenue? Because, I mean, do we think we're gonna be parking any on the Festival Commons?
That was a treasurer's office,
Yeah.
label for that,
Okay.
and,
But it's really
it should have
event
been,
fees, should be
it should have
event
been
fees.
event fees,
Right, that's
and,
what I thought.
But where's your parking on there? Is that where you're gonna fudge the balance?
Well, we talked about trying to park, some cars perhaps on Fourth of July weekend if it's not rented, as we did before when we had fireworks shows.
Mhm.
Right.
The revenues were substantial. I know Dave doesn't agree with this, but, if we don't have an event there, Fourth of July weekend, and we wanted to park cars one night, but that would be, I would still count that as one. I mean, it's still revenue.
that would be the minority of the revenue.
Yeah, that wouldn't amount to a lot. We're
Mhm.
still renting the space, basically.
Okay, so right now we're saying 59,000 in that OCTAX from the joint, town, village, and then we'll just ask for something back from the village when we adopt the budget.
Okay.
from the village
And do we do anything with unappropriated fund balance? I mean, we still have money in,
That is,
Parking-
right, we still
parking
have
event
the
fees.
deferred revenue code that
right,
essentially any net positive in this code goes into that park maintenance fund for future major repairs, replacements. So that'll still occur. If we exceed the revenue projections,
right.
then any excess revenue goes into that
Mhm.
deferred revenue code.
Okay.
And that, I
So
think
we don't
by,
appropriate any of that to make the budget balance or to help the budget balance?
I don't think we need to, that would be more for, you know, the bigger repairs. Let's say we have an event that comes in, we do have a lot of settling going on that central, turf area. And it doesn't look like it until you walk on it, but I'm sure you can see it after it's cut. It's not smooth, you wouldn't wanna play frisbee on it necessarily, in some areas. So I think it will need, maybe in its next spring or the following spring, we'll have to do some leveling, peel back the sod, level up and put the sod back down in certain spots.
Okay. So are we ready to, recommend this budget to the budget officer?
I'll move it.
Motion by Bill, seconded by Gene. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye, opposed, carried. Okay, on, referral pending items,
I think I've, addressed 1 and 2, and then 3 was kinda regarding the, that deposit, that refund. Refund? Can we take action on the refund or not?
You did take action on the refund.
Yeah, we did.
Okay.
Dennis made the motion.
yeah.
This is something that I think we gotta sort out between now and next, as soon as possible, because some of those terms, we should be telling the events going
Right.
into 2016 that we need a deposit by this date, and it either is or is not refundable, or under what terms it
Yeah.
would be refundable.
Well, it could be refundable up to a certain point before the event, but then after that certain point, it'd be reasonable to have it not be refundable, because you're not gonna pick up another event.
It's
Really,
it's
no.
built into the new, contract, but we have not sent the contracts out to anyone yet because we're waiting for the, Public Works Committee, is it? To set, or some committee to set the fee for the parking.
Mhm.
So I have not distributed the new contracts to any of the groups that have expressed an interest in coming next year, because I don't have the fee that the county's going to want for the parking lot. We're anticipating that it was gonna be the same, $1,500, but I don't know that.
Mhm.
So we can't send the contracts out without knowing
Right.
what that fee's gonna be.
So then what does that agreement say about the deposit?
That they have to, submit a $500 refundable deposit with the application, and that if they don't cancel the event 60 days in advance, they do not get their deposit back.
Get that 500 back, but this one we refunded, he put down 1,500, I guess.
Well, that's talking about the 1,500. The 500 would be refundable, because they would never use it.
I see,
But if
okay.
they put down the 1,500 or
1,500.
half of what it is, and they cancel, they don't cancel between 60 days out, they would not get it back.
Mhm.
It's too late to book another event.
Right, okay. Okay, anything
Yeah.
else, Jeff?
I'll be, Public Works is meeting on Tuesday, so that'll be on the agenda for them.
Okay. Yeah, and the reason I think we asked DPW to keep it at $1,500 is that we want, all the benefits of having these events happen, which brings in more tax, more sales tax. And that's the theory of not wanting to discourage people by having too high a parking fee.
That's our hopes.
That's the hopes, okay. Okay, any other business for the committee?
Just have, to tell the committee that we have 5 events that will be returning from this year. They're awaiting contracts, and working with 2 new events, both in October, which is great. If some of you remember the Barbershop Quartet Festival that used to be held in Bolton Landing for many, many years, very successful. They're looking to come to Warren County on October 8th and 9th and use the festival space. They would be coming from all over the United States, remarkable. And a fall festival, which has been in Long Island, working with a promoter out of New York City, a 5-day event, the 3rd week in October, to be held throughout Warren County, but with the central place to be the festival space.
Oh.
And this event in Long Island last year drew 13,000 people. Not that we would do the same, but this is a huge event, and the promoter wants to move it upstate, because he's got a house on the lake now.
That helps.
Reduce his commute.
Yeah.
So he'll be actually coming here over the winter months and presenting it to the entire group, because it would use many more areas than just the festival space.
Okay, great. Anything else, Jeff? Any other business for the committee? Not, motion to adjourn? Made and seconded, all in favor?
I got something I want to say.
Why don't you let me know when